Thanks, Masoom, for making it here. We still expect few people to join us. But I would like to start with the fact that you started as a content creator and now you have also invested, right? So when you invest, what are the factors that you take in mind while you invest in a brand?
Of course. I think something that we're all looking for is the founder's ability and adaptability. I think that's extremely important in today's market. But as an investor, and especially as someone who's in a very dynamic industry like I am and I represent, it's interesting to see what value I can add as well. Right? Where does my expertise add, and what can that partnership be beyond sort of the cash component, right? And I think it's been a very interesting outlook to actually be involved in the journey of the company. And I think that makes it more interesting versus just always judging basis their abilities and what their predictions are.
Right. So how do you assess longevity of a brand when you invest in it, right? What are the things that you look into a brand when it comes to sustaining it and growing it? And how much of your inputs also goes into making it?
I think it all boils down to the determination that the founder has. Of course, there's a lot spoken about the problem that the brand or the company is kind of taking care of or answering, but it does really boil down to what is the core value that the brand is kind of speaking of, and how determined are you to make this a success. So I think that is something that really decides the longevity.
Any particular experience that you would like to share with us while you have invested in so many brands?
Yes, of course. I really do believe in the digital economy, and a lot of my investments have been in that space specifically. And there is, where my expertise has really kicked in understanding the modern Indian consumer and what the modern Indian consumer responds to, what they want to see, how they like to consume, over and above just what they're consuming, how do they like to consume it. And it's been very interesting to see, a couple of startups in the digital economy space. And with my expertise, we've been able to actually really um, make sure the product and service appeals to the consumer of today, the Gen Z, the early millennials, because it's a whole different economy, right? They're not responding to marketing and advertisement the way we knew it back in the day, or the way we've seen it grow up. It's a whole different universe.
Right. So we have seen content creators collab with each other when it comes to creating content with other brands. But how much do you see content creators working with you, other content creators, to build brands where you have invested?
So in general, the content creator industry is a very, very collaborative industry. We all, work together. It's also because we're the first generation of content creators, right? So it's almost like we don't have mentors. We don't even see the second generation yet. All we have is each other. So in general, it's extremely cooperative.
Right. Typically, when brands associate with influencers, they have lot many checkpoints to tick at in terms of ROI. How do you measure your ROI as a content creator, as an influencer?
So I get this question very often, right? And I think it also comes from the place that influencers do charge the moon these days to work with brands. And a question that I get quite often is that how do we measure that ROI, right? The investment is large in influencers today. So how do we measure what that return is looking like? And frankly, it's quite a nuanced equation, because if brands look at that relationship with the content creator or the influencer as a way to drive sales, right? Or you're measuring it via click through rates, I don't think that's a very satisfactory response. Influencers and content creators should work with brands to build brand awareness and long term brand loyalty amongst their community. And I think that's where the juice is, right? That's where you can really build a very successful relationship in working with an influencer, that you work with them on long term collaborations. You work with them in a way that you can actually imbibe your brand into their lifestyle completely. So the conversation in itself is authentic, it's genuine, it's honest, and that's when the community responds. And that will eventually lead to sales and click through rates.
But what happens in cases of certain brands that come with a huge set of guidelines, do's and don'ts? How do you navigate around that?
Um, I always say consumer is king, but also client is king, right? And we shouldn't ever forget that. I think there's perspective behind the brands coming in with those set of guidelines. And we're as content creators, we're not on the opposite end of the table. We're all sitting on the same seat and we're trying to build something that will actually turn profitable for everyone involved. So I think you have to understand where the guidelines are coming from. It's coming for a reason, right? It's coming because they're trying to achieve a goal which maybe without the guidelines is not being achieved. They're asking you to wear a certain color in a video because that's matching their brand's language and brand's attributes. So I think, it might seem like it's too much, but I think there's reason behind it. There's like agencies like Dentsu itself, which is here with us today. I think they have an understanding and that specialization in terms of what is it that brand requires? Why are you using certain words with certain brands? Why are you dressing or speaking a certain way? It all has to tie in together for the brand's long-term goals.
Right. From content creator to an investor, what is that advice that you like to give to new set of content creators who want to get into the space of entrepreneurship?
The advice that I'd like to give them is that understand your strengths that go beyond content creation. So, you look at content creators, and it's very common, right? You see, if you go out in Bombay or really any other city today in India, you see everyone taking photos and taking videos everywhere, and you're like, "Ye kya kar rahe hai?" Right? Like that's everyone's usual reaction. But the skill involved in being a successful content creator is not taking a good video. And that's where the misconception is. It's not in putting on your selfie camera and tilting your head and taking a picture. That's not where the expertise lies. The expertise lies in being able to create a community. The expertise really lies. Why do brands pay influencers such large amounts? They pay them because they want access to their community, and that's what it simply is. So when they're looking to become an entrepreneur, that's the strength they need to tap into, right there, which is exactly what I've done as becoming an investor. What am I tapping into? I'm tapping into my knowledge of the modern Indian consumer. I'm tapping into my awareness of what works in this ever changing digital age, which frankly, not everyone understands. And that's exactly what everyone should do.
So when a content creator turns into an entrepreneur and she goes to present a pitch to an investor, what are the things that she should keep in mind and what are the risks that there are that comes attached with that?
So, fundamentally, content creation as a business is not something that requires heavy capital investment, right? And I mean, if that's not obvious enough, it's not something that requires it. So, if you're going to an investor and having that conversation, it's probably related to a brand you're launching or some D2C um, enterprise. In that case, I think once again, you need to come back to the fact that you know how to build a personal brand. I think what is so important, and we've seen the success of this happen in our country itself. Some of the most successful brands today have the founders have very, very strong personal brands. And then we see that really add to the marketing of the brand. And I think that's your USP. That's the differentiating factor for a creator today, is that you play on the strength of your personal brand.
But does it somewhere worry you that there are too many brands that's coming off late and it's difficult to differentiate when it comes to an USP? I mean, yeah, we talk about homegrowns and indie brands, but do you think somewhere that USP is missing and there are too many Me Too's now in a different way?
Absolutely, but I think India is a country where you can have too many of something, right? We're such a large audience. I think nothing is too less of something. So there's a million copies of everything now in terms of an idea, and people are still, they're famished, so they're eating it all up.
Mm, to the next set of content creators, what is that advice that you like to give, because there's no deluge of content, whether it's on YouTube or Instagram or anywhere, any other platform, right? What is that advice that you like to give?
The advice I'd like to give is, don't believe anyone when they tell you that it's too crowded a space. I think it's an incredible industry, one that I'm so lucky to be a part of. And I think you need to be able to find which area you can add value in within this industry. And if you're able to hit that nail, it's an incredible job to have. It's an amazing job to have where you get to create, you get to express, you get to build a community, which is uh, very, very interesting. And I mean, I have, over and above my family, I have a whole digital family of over 1.3 million people. That's rare and it's very precious.
Right. I think you have a hard stop, so we will stop here. But thank you so much for making it with us today.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.